This podcast aims to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And in this episode, we have a man who has thrived, scaled, and grown his career and the creative careers around him. And I'm super excited for you to listen. Rob Schwartz is the chair of the newly formed TBWA New York group, which includes TBWA Chiat Day, New York, Lucky Generals, New York, and 180 New York. The three distinct and separate creative agencies are unified in their belief that the unreasonable power of creativity leads to the unreasonably epic results for brands. Rob is the rare creative person who is fascinated by all aspects of business and finds ways to create breakthrough platforms and campaigns that build brands and get results. Since he transformed from Chief Creative Officer at Chiat LA to CEO of Chiat New York, the office experienced explosive growth, more than doubling in size, and helping the TBWA collective earn Ad Age A-list honors back-to-back, Adweek's Global Agency of the Year, and Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies list. In 2019, Chiat New York earned 18 Lions, marking the best creative performance at Cannes in the history of the office. This is a special episode for me because I recall going on long walks in my hometown amid the March 2020 lockdowns. I would walk and listen to him speak on his podcast, The Disruptor Series. He directly impacted the foundation of breaking and entering, and I'm so grateful for him to be on this show. So in this episode, you will get a glimpse into his background and advice on breaking in. In addition, he disseminates lessons in his career that you can apply directly to warrant your own success. At the end of the episode, I asked him what he would do to break into today's advertising industry, and he's got an interesting answer. I always had Rob on my dream guest list, and it's surreal to have him this moment here with us. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And a secret for your own success. Rob lists out resources he recommends for you to follow. If you genuinely want to break into advertising and learn from the best, I suggest you indulge in those. And to find those resources, you have to go to our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod, all one word, at Breaking and Entering Pod. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Rob Schwartz, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on. This is a big episode, one of the larger guests I've ever had on it, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I know you're a great guy, so it's going to be a great episode. Thank you.
Gino, it's amazing to be here. I love what you're doing, and yeah, I'm here. Let's talk stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about advertising. How often do you have to talk about advertising?
How often do I get to, or how often do I?
How often do you want to?
I love advertising, so I could talk about it, any day of the week.
Okay, well, that's good. We'll dive in because, Rob, you are the chair at TBWA New York Group. Not TBWA New York, it's TBWA New York Group. Tell us what that means real quick.
Well, the New York Group is comprised of three of our New York agencies. So one you referenced, which is TBWA Chiat Day New York. Mm-hmm. Another one is Lucky Generals.
Shout out Andy.
Indeed. And another is 180 New York. And
what's 180?
180 is a micro network within the TBWA collective. And 180 was originally born to work on Adidas, and for your global listeners, Adidas. Mm-hmm. And right now it's 5 offices. It's Amsterdam, New York, Dubai, Los Angeles. I think I'm missing one. But and what it does is, at least our New York office, is we really try to build brands in a really modern way. And the best example I can give you is Slim Jim. And what the team there has done very successfully is, breathe new life into Slim Jim, but they put the brand back on the map almost exclusively through Instagram and Twitter, and now TikTok. It's one of the strongest brands on TikTok. So that's
Wow.
what 180's been up to.
Nice. So you oversee those three agencies. So we're probably going to talk finance with you. You know, you probably got your MBA. You're probably not so creative, just analytics guy, right?
Yeah, right. The opposite.
How does
But
that come to fruition? Your creative background being on the top, that doesn't seem like the norm.
yeah, well, it used to be, when we think of our great agencies of the creative revolution,
Mhm.
Dwell Dean Birnbach, Bill Birnbach was the president of DDB, and, Cliff Freeman, and, you name it. Emirati and Purist. I mean, these were agencies where creative leadership was, actual leadership. And for me, here's one, Chiat Day, Jay
Mhm.
Chiat, Guy Day. These were creatives running the asylum. Um, for me, it happened in the summer of 2014. I went to the office of our new global CEO, a guy by the name of Troy Ruhanen. And I was a creative director at the time. And he said, "Hey, what do you want to do next?" And I said, "I don't know, I had a global job at the time. I said, I don't know, maybe I'll just move back to LA, run a piece of business, be a creative director." And he said, "Why don't you be the CEO of New York?" And I
Uh-huh.
was like, "Wait, what? Huh?" And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "The office could use, some care and feeding, but why not you?" And I said, "All right, give me a week. Let me put together a business plan and let me think about it." So this was a creative person's business plan, by the way, and I used our own strategic methodology called disruption. I
Mhm.
wrote a disruption for the New York office, and I presented it to him on a piece of paper, and I had another piece of paper which kind of walked through some things I wanted to do in the office. And he was like, "You know what? I think this is great. Go, let's do this." And I mean, I
Wow.
just I love Troy for this, and I love, he's a guy, as he'll tell you, he looks for people who are sunrise people who wake up and who are optimistic, and I think he saw my optimism, and that's how that kind of amazing part of my career kicked off.
2014. I was just getting my driver's license. What was on the piece of paper though that you wrote? What was the disruption?
Oh man, now I got to remember this. The well, just to back up, disruption has three components. It has the convention, kind of what's the status quo of something. Could be a
Right.
brand, could be a business. Then there's vision. What's the goal? What do you want this thing to be? And then there's disruption in the middle. So for people like me who are English majors, kind of two nouns on the left and a verb in the center.
Love it.
And the vision was I just wanted to be the strategic and creative center of excellence for all of TBWA. And my thinking there was if we could be the best of TBWA, we have a shot at being one of the best in the business.
Absolutely.
And the convention was something like dysfunction without the fun. The office was really underperforming. And my disruption was uh, New York hustle, global muscle, that we were going to act like a startup, be a very New York agency, but we would have the muscle and all the skill and all the resource of a global company.
Interesting.
So
How do
that,
you
sorry, please, you.
Oh, I was going to ask. I mean, at the time, though, when you're trying to build up this disruption for New York, I mean, Shy Day LA for decades has kind of been the forefront for creativity. How do you did you feel like you guys were in New York, were in the shadow? Was it a competition with Shy Day LA? How do you balance the two, like, creative power horses?
Well, I grew up at Chiat, LA. So, I started working there in 1998. So I really was very intimate with the great things that we would do there. And, by the time I left there as the chief creative officer in 2010. I mean, we
Wow.
were over 500 people. We were close to 200 million in revenue. I mean, we had Visa, Pepsi, Nissan, PlayStation. I mean, Apple across the way. I mean, this was a powerhouse agency. So part of me looked at New York, which at that time in 2014 had, fallen on hard times. I did two things. One is I had a vision of, I knew what a great TBWA office could look like.
Right.
I knew LA. I had global role between 2010 and 2014. So I had been to TBWA Hakuhodo, Japan, an amazing office. I'd spent a
Wow.
lot of time at TBWA Paris, a
Yep.
great office. I spent time down in Brazil. I had seen great TBWA offices. And that was, kind of my vision. How could this New York office be that? And the other thing was, when I looked at the history of New York, starting with Chiat Day in 1982, what I noticed in my analysis was that there were these moments in time where the New York office was incredible. So in 1990, 1991, it was a great office. When Dick Sittig was there, and a lot of other great people. In Cabell Harris, who's still working in the business, by the way. I saw him last night. Working legend, truly working legend. In 2008, when Jerry Graff and the crew were there, making Skittles and all that fun stuff. Great office. So you had these kind of moments, 1991, 2008. These were great offices. And I said, okay, let's build sort of the 3G. What's the third great moment for TBWA Chiat Day New York? And that's what we set out to build when I took the job on January 9th in 2015. And we haven't looked back since.
Yeah. What is some of the work that you've turned around, that you were at the helm and you're really proud of, when you decided, hey, we're going to be great again. We're going to make this agency a creative powerhouse again. What stands out in your recent memory?
I mean, a couple of, great pieces. One of the pieces of work I'm really proud of is we did some great work for Michelin. And, we'd had the brand for a while. We'd had the brand all over the globe, but we had never won at Cannes.
For
And
Michelin.
we did a fantastic at-home digital and post and poster campaign where we just positioned the Michelin Man, or Babendum as he's known formally, as kind of a guardian angel. And you saw like the long arm on the side of a road protecting a car, and just graphic, universal, like the best of what TBWA does.
Yeah.
So that was one, I think, that was a real kind of first marker that, hey, something is happening at this agency.
Can you correct my advertising history real quick? Was Michelin the first tire to promote safety, where I believe there was like a baby on board, or no, there was a baby in the tire wheel?
Yes.
And there's like, some things are more important than speed, or there's more important things on board.
I'm gonna tell you maybe one of the best lines ever written. So this came out of Doyle Day and Birnbach, and the visual was a baby in a tire, and the line was, because there's so much riding on your tires.
Boom. That's it.
Yeah, it's like, that was really good. So we did something almost as good as that, but
Yeah.
pretty damn good. That was one. We did one that didn't get a lot of press, but I was very proud of the team for doing this, which was for a diamond company called Hearts on Fire. And what was great about this, you can find it on YouTube. It's kind of a classic manifesto structure. In fact, I was looking at it today because someone had asked me about manifestos.
Oh, Lee Clow loves those.
But what I loved was the line, this is for a diamond. Uh, the name of the company is Hearts on Fire. And the idea was ignite something. And it was so powerful. They're using it to this day, whatever it is, close to 8 years later, 7 years later. So that was really good. And there are a bunch of other really interesting things. We won the Izzy business at that time. It's a great story. There was a young kid named Kyle who was, like a community manager, writing all this great, like these posts. And we were on a deadline for this meeting, and we started seeing the posts were sort of like strewn about. No one was making any big deal about it, and we started reading these posts, and they were amazing. Like, the language was great, the tone and manner was great, and I turned to Nancy Reyes at the time. She had come on board, and we both looked at each other and we were like, "This is it. This is the idea." And like within hours, we had turned around an entire presentation and won the business. So it was great. So that was a great moment.
And a community manager was writing these posts kind of ad hoc as he felt, and they streamlined together.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is, what I guess one of the lessons.
Yeah, that's a lesson right here.
Your Breaking and Entering podcast. I think just one of the lessons is, there are no small media. Like anything could be great, and this kid was just writing these great posts, and you saw the big idea within the posts. I think the idea for this was it just is. It was a very funny campaign because it's not a juice, it's not a soda, it just is. And he had really captured it within these posts. And we suddenly saw, this could be film. This could be out of home. This could be on the trucks. This could be within the halls of the Izzy brand, folks over at PepsiCo. So, I think people who are community managers, people who think they're working on small assignments, there are always big ideas within small assignments, and that's what you need to aim for.
Yeah. Oh, it's great that, a creative leader like yourself was able to pick that out, though, because sometimes it can get lost in the shuffle.
Well, I think one of the skills that you have to develop, particularly as a creative director, we talk a lot about craft. There's a lot about, if you're a writer, be a great writer. Yes. Right. You're a great art director. Yes. Be a great art director. But become a great curator. Like, you need to know what a good idea is, and especially when it's not yours. And, one of the things I've learned in my career is, in any given project, you need certain people. Here's maybe something else that people will find helpful. You need somebody who's the generator. Somebody is coming up with all of these ideas. Mm-hmm. And you also need the editor.
Right.
Oftentimes the writer is generating a lot of ideas, and there's a great art director who's kind of going, that one's good, maybe that one. But then you need the spotter. Somebody in the room's got to go, that's it. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So I think if you just have those three, you are more than halfway to being successful. The generator, the editor or curator, and then the spotter.
What I know it changes every time, probably, or most of the time, but when in your career looking back, what role were you?
I mean, I've been lucky because I've had to do them all.
Right.
So sometimes it really depends on the project. Mm-hmm. I'll be the writer, and sort of generate a lot of stuff. Other times, I'd work with great people, and they had the idea. It's like, wow, that's great. Let's make this great. And then the more mature I got in the business as a creative director, chief creative officer, as a CEO, especially, spotter is really the skill. You have to really kind of hone your eye and ear for like, wow, that's the idea. And then it's the idea because it not only solves the brief, but you can start to see how it can grow. You can start to see, how you can get the clients to believe in it with you. And ultimately, you start to see how the consumer or the customer is going to fall in love with it.
Absolutely.
It's
I want to kick it back.
Sorry,
go ahead.
It's almost like three-dimensional reading and listening.
What do you mean by that?
Things at face value. You're looking at it for what the idea is and what the idea can be.
Right. Love that. And that's important. And I mean, that probably takes time, but for our entry level listeners, that's important to understand. But I do want to kick it back, and because the name of the podcast is breaking and entering, and figuring out, how did you get involved in this business? I mean, I know you studied literature at Michigan, and I went to Illinois, so a little bit of a rivalry there. Not much, not so much, but um, when was the moment when you said, "Hey, I want to go into advertising. This is what I want to do."
Well, the moment has a few moments that lead up to it. So I graduate, and spring of 1987, maybe it was 1887, I don't remember, it was a long time ago. And everybody was going to law school then, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to law school too, because I don't know what else to do, because I'm an English major, and while I loved being an English major, this was kind of a dumb major. Maybe I should have been an engineer. I don't know. I need a track. But it turned out to be the best major. So I was doing the Stanley Kaplan studying, which maybe your audience can relate to. And I take the LSAT. And around question 68, I just kind of looked at the paper. I looked at the clock, and I just stood up and I said, what the actual fuck? What? I don't want to do this. So I stood up, I tore up my test, and I walked out.
Wow.
And I wound up doing an Outward Bound. This is like an outdoor school. I wasn't, not like any kind of Boy Scout, but I wanted to just get out of my head. I moved back to my home in New York City with my family, and I'm just like, I got to get out. So I did that, and it was amazing because I got my head on straight that I could do something. And at that time, I thought, I think I'm going to write the great American novel. And at that time, there was a great novel by a guy named Jay McInerney called Bright Lights, Big City, which I loved. There was another one called Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis, which I loved. And I'm like, I'm going to write the third. And I guess I have something with these trilogies. And I had these sort of magnificent first sentences, but I couldn't write the thing. And I didn't know that. Well, it's best to know the ending and work backwards. I didn't have any of that skill. I didn't know. We had no internet. Like, I just didn't know any of that. So I got a job in publishing with the logic of, oh, well, if I want to be a writer, I'll work in publishing. And it was terrible. And part of my responsibility was that I had to write these sales reports. And I would just write them with a little bit of spice. And there was a woman at Simon & Schuster where I worked named Diane Lamont. And she's like, you're a pretty good writer. Maybe you should take a class in advertising. And I was like, huh, what? And she said, well, I've got a friend. His name is Tony Romeo. He teaches down at the School of Visual Arts on 23rd Street. Look him up. So I went down to School of Visual Arts. I got enrolled in the class, and a famous art director named Tony Romeo started teaching one night, and I'm like, fuck me, this is amazing. This is what I want to do.
How old were you when you were taking that class?
I don't know. I was probably 24.
Okay.
Something 23, 24, somewhere around there. And it was amazing. And I just became obsessed with it. And I think one of the other, big lessons is, if you want to go into advertising and you haven't gone to school for it, it does pay to take a concept class.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that, even maybe at your old place, Chicago Portfolio School.
Yeah.
But there's many more resources and material out there, for people now. I mean, back in the day, there really wasn't much other than, awards annuals. And through a combination of the class and studying everything that Chiat did and Fallon McElligott, that's how I started to understand, pictures and words. These things, need to work together in some way.
Right. So did you build your portfolio up, and how did you get hired?
Yeah, I started working on my portfolio. There was no Photoshop. There was just, me and some Bien Fang paper writing headlines. What I did was I then started looking for an entry level job, and I didn't know what it was. In fact, if it was a media job, I would have taken that thing. And I think that's
Right.
another lesson. Like, just get into an agency. That's what you have to do. Doesn't matter where. And I wound up getting what turned out to be a wonderful job, which was I was a copy typist.
Okay.
And back then, I had dual responsibility. I was the proofreader, and at that time, a lot of the creatives, particularly the writers, would write their ideas on legal pads, and then they would take the legal pad and they would give it to me, and they'd be like, I used to have a nickname. I was the copy cub, and they'd be like, "Cubby, type this up." And what was amazing is you would see the ideas and you would type them. And it was very interesting, even though they weren't my ideas. I started to sort of feel like, wow, this is what it feels like to have an idea, even though
Okay.
I'm typing these ideas up.
That's interesting.
So I forget who, somebody else talked about this too, that they would type they would like type Hemingway just to see what it felt like to write a great sentence. I forget who that was, but somebody else did that. I learned that much
I've never
later.
heard that before.
But that was the beginning of it. And what was great, this was a great agency. It was called Altschiller Reitzfeld. David Altschiller was a great writer. He was the creative director, they used to call him copy chief, at one of the best agencies ever, which was called Carl Alley.
Carl Alley. Okay.
Which eventually became Alley and Gargano.
Okay.
But he was the creative director there, and then he left to start his agency. And Bob Reitzfeld was a wonderful art director who used to work with Ed McCabe. So these are the lions of our business. And
I've heard of so many Ed McCabe stories from my old boss, Jeff.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And these guys had this small little powerhouse agency, and that's where I learned about kind of boutique creative. Like, how can you be like a small agency but do work that's got a real point of view and can be funny and charming. They did a lot of great work for Dr. Brown's cream soda and Boar's Head meats, and I learned a lot. And I worked for a woman named Roz Green. She was the copy chief there, and she was amazing. She would like just give me advice and let me work on stuff, and she was would be very hard on me and tell me things like, that's great, maybe you should try writing that like a writer would. And, if I was going to a client meeting, she would ask me if that's what you're going to wear. Okay. But one of the things
that's New York too.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And just one of the things about that job was I liken it to being a garbage man. I would any assignment that nobody else wanted to do, I would do it. And I was trying to turn the garbage into gold. And that's a great strategy. Like, take the worst assignments in the agency and make great things with them. And I was just doing that. And one day, David, the creative director, was like, wow, these ads are really good. Who's doing these? And they said, no, Copy Cub's doing them.
Copy Cub. That's incredible. And then they started to notice you and give you better briefs.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The best thing, and again, this is another, great bit of learning, was I worked on this Restaurant Associates account. This was a holding company of restaurants at famous restaurants in New York. So Mama Leone's and Brasserie, I mean, you name it, they had these famous restaurants. And every Wednesday in the New York Times was the menu ads. And this was a big deal back in the day when newspapers, really ran stuff. And I find newspaper advertising is quite similar to writing posts, whether it's, you pick a platform, this is post.
Interesting.
And 3/4 of the ad or 2/3 of the ad was the menu. And you had 1/3 of the ad to do something clever. And it was the best training because, the way the system worked was Monday morning, I had to write 50 headlines by lunch. And then at around noon, 12:30, the creative director, would come out. He would like read all my headlines and maybe pick two. All right, these two are
Hmm.
okay. Take them to the client. But it got you in the habit of writing in volume, and like
Yes.
I would write a ton very quickly, and then you write some funny things, like whatever. There's like a seafood buffet, a lot of fish, not a lot of clams, or I remember I had to do one. They had this beef carver at this steak restaurant. And he was this famous guy, and the line was, "You're cordially invited to a celebrity roast."
Mm.
And like they sound so stupid now, but it really taught you how to write a headline. And we'll sit. Today, in fact, we're working on a pitch. We're going to meet with a client tomorrow, and I'm like banging out headlines for the slides.
Yeah.
And still, people look like, "Wow, how do you write these headlines so fast?" And it goes back to my training as a junior copywriter.
And what are you writing? Like today, you said you're doing that. Are you writing on a piece of a piece of paper?
Well, it really depends. Now I just talk them. I can
Oh,
just
yeah.
I can just talk a headline, but if I have to do writing, I do a lot with just kind of pencil on paper.
Yeah. That's what, I mean, my boss would preach that at portfolio school is just he would have a yellow legal pad, like what you were
Yeah,
talking
I
about.
don't really like lines. I get these great blank pads, and
Oh,
I'll
well,
write stuff on
you
there.
watched the video on how Seinfeld wrote every episode on the yellow legal
Love it.
pad and the blue
Great.
barrel pen.
It was
Good
great.
video.
Yeah, no, I have a few indulgences in life, and I buy these really fancy pencils from Museum of Modern Art. They're great. They're these wonderful Japanese pencils. So,
Oh, nice. Well, yeah, I'm
you
sure.
know, I'll save money elsewhere, but
Yeah, you can handle it.
not on my $8 a box MoMA pencils.
Maybe not for people just starting out. That's when you're a chairman. You can get those pencils.
True. That's true. By the way, the other thing, writing, and I referenced it to you. You asked me about a couple of things, 5 things. There's a book called The Artist's Way. And I encourage any of your listeners to read this book. It's incredible. It's a book about the creative process. And a woman named Julia Cameron wrote it. She's a screenwriter, but she's really made a name for herself with this book. And she's got a practice called morning pages. And
Ah,
you just write 3 pages in the morning. She has it as a bit of a meditation, and I've done this at periods of my life where I just sort of empty my mind in the morning. It's a wonderful practice, but I also use it to help people when we're stuck on an idea. And if we're stuck on something and we sort of reach an impasse, I'll say go write 3 pages. But you have
of
to
what?
use a pen or a pencil. You have to write 3 pages. That's what I'm going to tell you. Gino, write 3 pages. I don't care what it is, but there's something in your mind about a given problem that is not coming out. So you have to write about it. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You're not writing a manifesto. You are
Mhm.
writing everything that is in your head. And what'll happen is oftentimes people will start writing, "This fucking brief sucks. I hate this job. I'm sick of advertising. Why am I working on this? Why am I
Right.
working so hard? This project is stupid. Although if we did X, Y, and Z, it could be good. In fact, if we did A, B, C, in fact,
It
if we did,"
turns.
and next thing you know, on page 2, in the middle of the page, that's where the idea is.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it shifts. That's a good idea.
So just write 3 pages. Whenever you're stuck, I've done it for projects I'm working on. I've done it for assignments. I've done it when, should I take this job? Well, you name it. Should we buy this house? It is the best way to empty your head.
Hmm. I can use that. I'll have to apply that. Any other like methods, tricks to the trade that you've used over your career that comes to mind?
Mm, I think when you're writing copy, read it out loud.
Mhm.
That's a really good one because you just want to hear how it sounds. Again, even if you're writing social posts, they should be written well. I my my pal George Tannenbaum, who I of course
Yeah.
urge everybody to read, Ad Aged.
Ad aged.
Read his blog. He told me it's pronounced aged, by the way.
Aged.
That's what he told me. I thought it was Ad Aged. He called it aged.
Okay.
He says good writing is a business advantage. Yeah, it is. Think about the brands that you like, and the best brands. They're writing well. You need to write well. Your emails need to get read. It's an attention economy. So read them out loud. That's another, I guess, trick of the trade.
Yeah. What about the term though? Phrase, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Could not agree more. I mean, anybody who knows me and works with me, I'm constantly like, enough, too many words.
Yeah,
So,
it's good visual.
yeah, I think if you can, listen, at the end of the day, or I think, to back up, you need to demonstrate. You need to show people something. And what's the best way to show them? Mostly it's with a picture, a piece of film, because we're trying to make somebody feel something. If you want someone's behavior to change, you want them to do something, think differently, you have to make them feel something.
It's not like back in the day when long copy was a visual in a way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Long copy is the visual, I think, is genius.
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes long copy can work. But it's hard now because it's hard to read on technology. Think about text, it's hard. And so I think the technology sometimes makes the long copy hard to read.
That's fair. Never thought about it like that. But any other, advice to, I don't know if you're in the hiring process for entry level talent, but any advice as like final pieces of, how to break in? What would you do if you were trying to break in today?
Well, breaking in, I think, has never been easier and never been harder.
Oh, great. That's
it's
lovely.
easier. It's easier because you have so many platforms to demonstrate your creativity.
Yep.
We'll talk deeper about TikTok, but I mean, if I was a young writer, art director, I would be all over TikTok. That's number one. I would be all over Instagram. That's number two. I would do my own podcast like you did. That's number three. I mean, those three alone, you have so much opportunity to demonstrate what you can do. And TikTok, I'm in my mid 50s. I'm an old fart, and I have not been riveted to a content machine like this since MTV launched in 1981.
Oh, really? It's great.
I have the same feeling.
It's fantastic. It's addicting. Cuisine. You like that guy?
Take care, brush your hair. I love
that guy. Oh my God.
Because Cuisine's got a point of view.
Right.
That woman, Emily Zugay, right, who did her
the designs,
her funny design stuff.
Sure.
Like,
got a point. Yeah.
She's on the map now.
Yeah, but I mean, how is that going to get you hired as a junior copywriter? Is that going to get you hired as a content creator? Are you going to go viral? Is your goal to be an influencer? That's where I'm kind of concerned with. Like, would that really help me become a copywriter or art director?
I think that I think you have to be on TikTok. I think you have to make stuff. That's number one. Yeah. How are you going to connect to creative directors? It's going to be a challenge to break through because there is excellent content on TikTok. I mean, truly excellent.
Yes.
But use something else called LinkedIn. And you can start making your stuff and you can send it to someone directly on LinkedIn. You can post it on LinkedIn. I mean, I think that one of the things that I'm missing in the industry is nobody has any balls. Like, have some guts. Like, put it out on the line. Like, show some stuff. And I think the best people on TikTok, they have a point of view and they're just letting you know about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, that's what I'm looking for. And when I see whether it is Cuisine or some of these other people, I mean, I've got all kinds of ideas to say, hey, let's work with this person, to do something for the brand, and that's what you got to do. I mean, I think your podcast, the reason why I'm doing it, the reason why I believe in it is that I admire your courage and your bravery to go out there and say, I'm going to do this podcast. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you
So
bring up a good point.
if you're not making stuff, I talk to people all the time, which is, I think, another lesson. You have to talk to people. Take your head out of your phone and talk to people. I talk to people all the time, and I was talking to someone the other day, and he was saying to me, he goes, "No, I don't know if I want to be a writer or an art director or a strategist. I really love strategy." And I said, "Oh, sounds good." I said, "So, all right, so tell me some stuff you're making." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Great. I think you're probably going to be good in media, or we need great account people."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't make anything.
Right.
If you want to be a creative, you have to be a maker."
Right.
And I'm not. And listen, our business needs great account people. There is no job that is as important as great account people.
Oh,
And it's
absolutely.
and what I didn't know growing up, what I've learned, becoming a CEO, is that as an account person, you are at the center of all the activity. I mean,
Yep.
this can be a great job. I mean, it's a hard job. You take a lot of guff and take a
Yeah.
lot of shit,
Not for
but
me, but hey.
if you can rise above it, man, you are just at the epicenter of so much cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had some great account folk on this show, and I know personally it's not for me. But hey, if that's what you love, we got episodes for that.
We one of the best things I heard was because when I first took the job in New York, a lot of people were saying, "Well, what's a great account person?" And it was because people were looking for a little bit of vision. And I said, when you look at somebody like Ron Howard, he's the creative director, but his account guy is Brian Grazer. Great producers in Hollywood and even in the record business. These are great account people. The artists, artists make, and the producers make stuff happen.
Yeah. It's important. Absolutely. I love it. But hey, that's all I got, Rob. This has been fantastic. I think, how can people, can people reach out to you?
Of course. I'm on Twitter at
Twitter.
Schwartzy14.
So mention you on Twitter. If you got a question. That works.
I'm dropping gold all day long, so they can, kids can check it out there. Yeah, just sure. Or LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the greatest networking tool.
It's the best.
Since Jack Daniels. I mean, it's really unbelievable. So
Jack Daniels. I mean, our philosophy is what do you mean networking? Like, you can network with anybody on the planet right now through LinkedIn. It's just what's the work you have? Like, don't go out.
How did you meet? Right? What did you do? You sent me a LinkedIn thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, I actually DM'd you on Twitter and last summer, 2 summers ago when I first got started. I think you said I really like the name, and then you never got back to me, but I kept following up. So
persistence.
Yeah.
This is the other thing. You need a combination of patience and persistence.
Yes. Well, I might have reached out a little too early because I didn't have as many guests. I didn't, the work wasn't that great at the time, still not that great, but I got back to work. I built up the brand a little bit more, and which probably made it a little bit easier for you to recognize it. So I think that networking is great, but if you don't have work to show as well, you gotta walk the line there.
I think that's good. But sometimes people just want to meet somebody in the business, and whether it's our business or another business, just reach out. You never know.
Advice. Yeah.
I like to be the person that I never had,
Absolutely.
But I like to, just
you're a good person for that.
Find me on LinkedIn, and we can chat, and we'll see, we'll see what's what.
Perfect. Thank you so much for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. If you like what you heard, it would mean a lot to us and help us grow and get better guests, better break-ins if you could go to Apple Podcasts and leave us 5 stars and a small review if you have the time. Be sure to connect with our guests if you like what they said by going to our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod. It's all one word. Breaking and Entering Pod on Instagram. We have links to their portfolios and their LinkedIn. They want to connect, so do that. And thank yous. Thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio engineer, and Wuchan Zhang, our creative director. Can't do it without you two, and a team from the University of Illinois. It's a student team from the agency called AdBuzz, their PR agency, and it's been a pleasure working with them. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week with another amazing guest.